fell in love with Havana, but I'm starting to get cabin fever in my own vlog. So I'm going to move on to Cienfuegos and the rest of the island, but I will be back to Havana with more vlogs. On the wall of the Azul station in Havana, you will find this flashing map showing the route of Azul all the way to Santiago de Cuba, where I will eventually end up. Right now, however, I'm only going from Havana to Cienfuegos. After 2 hours, it stopped at a very fetching, attractive bus stop. Most foreigners choosing to travel independently by bus in Cuba will be traveling on Azul. Preferably make your reservation the day before and bring your passport and credit card. Also, check your baggage and, above all, be patient. Tour, that's the big tour operator here in Cuba. And nice enough bus, and I see it's Yungtong from China. Colorful, musical, thatched roof. Makes you think of Tahiti, Hawaii. And I'm starting to realize if you're an organized tour, that's what you get. You get a buffet breakfast at your hotel. 2 hours later, you get a buffet lunch on the bus, then a buffet lunch at the hotel again. So, just the kind of thing I wouldn't want to do. Keep eating all day. Man, what a life.
Tenemos de papaya, piña, guayaba, naranja, piña y melón.
One of the unforgettable delights of Cuba are the availability of various fruit juices. The easiest way to tour Cuba has got to be a bus tour, because you're traveling in these wonderful buses, you're staying in wonderful hotels, you're eating great food, and you don't have to worry where to go next, and you have a group of friends right around you. The only downside is it's relatively expensive, and it wouldn't be my choice to do this. Every time I saw a beautiful trans-tour bus, it was full of foreigners. I had the impression it was for tours only, but I understand now that they also have scheduled services between cities, so check it out, trans-tour. Buses you'll see all over Cuba are the Omnibus Nacional, but as I said in vlog number 10, Havana Essentials, they are not to be used by foreign travelers. Do not get the idea that every rest stop along the way looks like this. Far from it. Most stops are simply at city bus stations along the way. Make sure you remember what the number of your bus is before you get off. Stops usually are very brief, enough time to go to the washroom and maybe grab a bite to eat. By the way, you can't be guaranteed that the toilet on the bus is working. Are buses the only way to travel around Cuba for foreigners? Well, of course not. Let's check out some of the other options. Nothing is boring about traveling in a taxi colectivo. You can use it in the city, but also if you miss a bus, or another way to travel in Cuba is to use the taxi colectivo to get from city to city. But you got to test your skills in rounding up a number of people to fill the taxi to make it reasonable price-wise. Seriously speaking, it would not be a choice that I would consider. Perhaps the easiest way to tour Cuba would be on a cruise ship, calling at various ports of call, such as Havana, Cienfuegos, where I'm going in this blog, Santiago de Cuba, and you'd have Montego Bay in Jamaica thrown in. As they say, no muss, no fuss, it's all done for you, but your itinerary is rather limited. Do an internet search for Cuba cruises and you'll have all the information that you need. Another way to travel in Cuba, other than the way I'm doing with Azul, official bus company, with which foreigners travel in Cuba. But this car, this Peugeot, reminds me that you can rent cars in Cuba. So that's another way. And traffic is relatively light here in Cuba. Roads are not good, but they're not bad, and these cars can handle it. It doesn't have to be a Peugeot, it could be some other brand, but I used to rent Peugeots to tour Europe. So I would have to say that renting a car in Cuba would be a good option. It gives you a chance to go to all the corners that maybe the buses doesn't go to. So yeah, Biazul or... Let's see, it only takes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people, 6 people to run this thing. This looks a little better. Havana, Santiago de Cuba. That's what it looks like. Oh. Yeah, pretty primitive. 16 hours, oh my god. Okay, so there you have it. The Cuban railway, Ferrocarril de Cuba, has no website. That says a lot. The famous Train Français, with its sleeping cars, no longer runs. It's been replaced by this train from Mexico. As a train buff, I was really tempted to take the train, but 16 hours, no sleeping car, constantly keeping your eye on your luggage, no access to food. Hey, what could go wrong? Oh no, there I go whining again. For a raw train experience, take the Hershey train from Havana to Matanzas. I can't believe it, by sheer coincidence, I stumbled upon the Hershey train. I originally wanted to take from Matanzas, the first town I stayed at in Cuba, the Hershey train to Havana. The Hershey train is named the Hershey train because the Hershey Chocolate Company in the United States built a train to carry sugar to Havana and then to the United States. If time is a factor, consider domestic flights in Cuba. Go to cubajet.com for information. Flying in Cuba is somewhat hampered by internet chatter concerning age of equipment, safety records, maintenance, and lack of reliability. Of all the means of transportation available in Cuba, this is perhaps the most fascinating one. Camiones. It is the means of transportation used by many, many Cubans because it's dirt cheap. One of the best blogs ever would be Crossing Cuba in Camiones, but would you arrive with your baggage? The challenges associated with camiones are lack of comfort. You have bench seats. There's no view to speak of. It's crowded. It's hard to find where they leave from. They have a limited schedule. You need multiple connections to get to your destination. There are long waits. They're time-consuming and they're physically draining. But if you can find an Amarillo, a guy with a yellow suit, he might be able to help you. Oh no, there I go whining again. Despite my fascination with camiones, I only used them once. That was in Santiago de Cuba. It was a 1-hour trip at night. It was standing room only, and they turned the lights off. Frankly, I would have never done this by myself. At the time, I was accompanied by a Cuban. But hey, like I said earlier, it would make for a great vlog, so go for it. It's intense heat. These horses keep right on chugging along. Hola. Hey, there's an extra one, just in case the first one breaks down. Yep, good to have a backup. Coches de caballo, or horse carriages, are another fascinating part of Cuban means of transportation. For the most part, I was feeling sorry for these skinny little horses that were literally trotting along in the intense heat, unlike the one in the video that's walking. For shorter distances, this is another means of transportation at a very cheap price.
You need the city to tour, my friend, the city tour. I show you all the most beautiful places, the most beautiful square here in the old Havana and Havana Center, my friend.
Yes.
Beautiful, beautiful places. I'm very old. It's history. Havana is history.
Havana is beautiful history. There's always a workshop. And this is the workshop to get these tuk-tuks or bicycle taxis repaired. No one's kicked me out. BC taxis are a terrific way to get from point A to point B in the city, or you may be lucky to find an English-speaking driver who can give you a very colorful tour. I love the subtle greens of Vedados. Cubans, it's completely normal to hitchhike, and you'll see them along the highways, not only themselves but also with their cargo waiting to be picked up. Apparently, it is illegal for Cubans to pick up foreigners, and they're subject to be fined. Correct me if I'm wrong. So I was thinking of doing this, but yeah, it must be awfully hard in this weather, huh?
It's pretty warm. This is actually our first day on the bikes.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm a little nervous too. It's gonna be warm.
Yeah, it's very warm.
I just came from Montana where it was like snowing when I left.
I know. And where are you headed for?
First we're going just east a little ways, probably down to Santa Clara and Trinidad maybe.
Trinidad, yeah. And then down to Santiago?
That was the original plan, but none of us have quite enough time anymore.
It's a long way. Yeah. It's a long way, yeah.
Plus we were hearing that the middle part is pretty boring.
Yeah.
Like the west is cool and the east is cool, but in the middle it's like...
It's like the middle of Spain.
Yeah.
Pretty flat.
Yeah.
Have a good trip, eh?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Wow. Lobo cycling in Cuba? Yes, over the years I've done a lot of bicycle touring, mostly in Europe. For example, in 1999, I cycled across Spain along the famous El Camino de Santiago, the pilgrimage trail. The photo shows me in front of the cathedral on July 25th, 1999. So yes, as I said, I thought about it, but decided against it due to logistic reasons and time restrictions, and the heat. Geez, looking at the photo, I see I used to have a mustache. Well, maybe, just maybe, I should go back to it. On the east side of the Parque Jose Marti, remember the provincial legislature? Over here, Marti statue. On the east side is this magnificent cathedral. It's Catedral de la Purísima Concepción Church. Join me next Friday as I start my exploration of the beautiful city of Cienfuegos. Thank you for viewing, and if you missed my last blog, Havana Essentials, have a look. It's part of the background information.